Yeah.
It's impossible. And we always have this expectation because we look around and we see all these people succeeding, knowing more than us, and we have the FOMO, especially in JavaScript, of this new framework and this new thing and this new
Fear of
paradigm.
missing out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you understand, so he said that when he saw that, he understood that nobody knows everything, and the only thing you could do is just like go for it and ship it, and even if it's not perfect, and learn from it, and just like don't wait for the perfect moment and the perfect thing, or because we're all in the same boat basically, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's okay too. That takes the pressure off of yourself. I don't have to know everything either.
yep.
It's kind of, so what I'm getting out of all of this, like from our roundup and everything, is even coming here to the conference, simplifying it, right? Like taking out all of the big show and still keeping it white glove service, nice, but just focusing on the people, focusing on connections, and then remembering that we're all friends, right? Not putting like unrealistic expectations on ourselves, but changing your mindset, I think, is a big part of it too. And just kind of finding the humor in it too. That's a lot of what you do, is just taking that energy, that negative energy, turning into something that's funny and positive, and remembering just to connect with the people, and that as much as you want to give back to them and teach them, they want to do the same for you. So that when you're feeling that pressure, you need to reach out and just get that help from them, so that you can turn back around and give them a performance, a lecture, a lesson, a video, whatever it is that will give them value. But a lot of times we need to reach out and ask for that help so that we can turn around and give it right back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it depends on how do you feel like in the moment. Like you feel like you're not the right person to teach this. Yep. I struggled with this for years. Actually had a conversation about it. I sat down with Kenzie Dodds.
Yeah.
Who's here,
local.
Where I actually met for the first time in ng-conf 2015.
Okay.
When he was part of the Angular community before he started with PayPal and React. But so we sat down and talked about like teaching and web development and like, all that stuff. And we talked about like different ways to approach teaching. So his method is like he's doing workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of workshops. So he practiced a lot of the material before he creates courses, and then after that he knows all the question, all the for years I was, because of my perfectionism, I was always had this voice of like, you need to, for example, Angular 2 before it came out, we just got announced 2014. I started making videos on YouTube on preparing for Angular 2. That was my first YouTube videos on high res, like on my channel. Preparing for NG2, weird style of trying to like add nonsense humor to it, but basically it was taking the AngularJS code and preparing it for the syntax or like classes and types of like the future
components and all that. Yeah.
And I never like pulled the trigger because I said to myself, well, I need to build like large enterprise projects before I can teach about it. I don't want to just to take the documentation and just create like a video form out of the documentation.
So that perfectionism coming out.
Yes. And that kept me a lot of time from using my ability to maybe simplify things or making
like your talk today.
Making
conference
humorous or using humor to deliver the points. Even if I'm not an expert or I don't have 3, 4, 5 years of experience with this technology, and that kept me from producing more content, creating more courses, because it was my inner perfectionist of like, no, it's good enough. It's like imposter. Okay, people will think, okay, why should I listen to you? Who are you to teach me about that? You'd never work really in production, you know all that stuff. So it's like it took me years to untie it. I don't know, like
get rid of that.
Simplify.
So and to understand that there is value of taking like new technology that nobody really have yet experience with.
Yeah.
For example, these days is Quick,
Yeah.
which is a new framework, which still is not 1.0, still is being worked on, and maybe teaching about it. And not from a place of like, oh, I need to be like a super uber expert.
Right.
Because there are none. Yeah.
Yeah. and yeah, but you know what? That's okay. When I first started teaching about Angular JS,
Mhm.
it was I left my startup, the same startup that was a side hustle.
Okay.
I raised money for it. We had employees who worked on it. We made really bad business decisions, and I did an exit, but without the money. Just I exited the startup.
Yeah.
So I started playing with JavaScript and technologies, Ember and Backbone, and back then these were the frameworks. And I started playing with Angular JS. I started again, not knowing, just sharing links. I had a blog, nobody knew about it, just personal. It was like a bookmarks for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw
Like a journal or something.
yeah, I saw a good lecture from Mishko or from Igor.
Right.
I said, oh, this is a good lecture about dependency injection, link to YouTube. That was the blog post.
Nice.
Okay, so I did that. All of a sudden, people started commenting. I said, how did they get?
Yeah.
Just only my grandma know about this blog. So
Grandma's liking you 5 times.
yeah, and
she's got different accounts.
exactly. And I opened the Facebook group of JavaScript Israel, and it was me, my wife, and my other friend, 3 people.
Yeah.
Now it's 10,000 people. But back then,
Wow.
back then it was 10 people. One of them was a CEO of a company I worked with, a consultancy company in the past, and he saw that I posted my blog post on the Facebook group. This was the only content that I was the group manager, so I posted content. So he saw that and he said, there's a new conference in Israel, which are looking for people who talk about Angular JS. And I said, okay. And they couldn't find anyone because it was pretty new. It was the end of 2012.
Mm.
And it was just announced, I think, 1.0 at the mid of 2012 or something like that. So I told him, I just started 3 months ago. I'm no expert on the technology. I'm not I don't know, capable to teach anyone about it in conference. Not I never did a conference in my life. I don't know.
Which is how most people feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And he told me he was one of the VP or the architect in Wix, the company. Wix.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Wix.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
Yeah. So he told me, listen, most of the people, the majority of developers in Israel now, it was 2012, have no clue what AngularJS is. Everybody's using jQuery.
jQuery. Yeah.
So you will do a lot of people a big favor, if you just give an introduction to what it is. So sometimes you just need to be a few steps ahead of the majority.
Yeah.
That you can just show them where the next few steps, not all the journey, just the next few steps. So that's what he told me. He said, so you do people a favor, just to give the introduction. I said, well, okay. So I submitted the talk, and there was a deadline, or sorry, the conference got closer, and then my perfectionism again went to. I spent 18 days. It was my first lecture ever. 18 days studying AngularJS, the source code, trying to understand what is transclusion, what is all these words, watching lectures, because I didn't know. I was afraid about people asking me a question in a conference,
Right.
and I wouldn't know how to answer because I'm not an expert. So
Yeah.
I really dug into it, and in the end, it wasn't accepted.
Oh, no.
Oh.
So that's why I
all that
opened up my
work.
meetup group,
Yeah.
so I could
Give your talk.
give
Yeah.
my talk.
Yeah.
So I gave my talk, thinking it's 30 minutes, and it ended up being a 1 hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea that I need to time it. I had no idea to like. I had no
your
sense of
first time.
time.
Yeah.
And that positioned me. I was the first AngularJS lecturer in Israel.
Nice.
Wow.
And I didn't. So a lot of things I learned after the fact. For example, I don't like to repeat myself. So I went to the meetup with my own camera and recorded it and edited it and put it on YouTube,
Nice.
just so I can point to this. When people will ask me, I don't have to repeat myself. I can just point to the YouTube.
Yeah.
That came out of laziness. But actually, it was a good marketing move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then people saw that, and I was the only lecturer in Hebrew. So people, like companies, started to come to me for consulting and for job. And in hindsight, it was like, wow, okay, great move, yeah, brilliant. But I
Yeah.
never planned it. Yeah.
And something that could have been seen as a failure, you get turned down, and then you're just like, whatever, I'm going to go make my own meetup, and then I'm going to record it, and I'm going to put it online. So yeah, right, you're going to tell me no, but and then it turns into some big opportunity.
Yeah, but the point, even if you're even 2 steps ahead, because you're enthusiastic about this new technology that you love to learn, and you could just teach what you just learned to the people who didn't learn it yet.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not like into like reading documentation. They much prefer like the medium of like people explaining them.
Yeah.
So you're doing people a favor.
Yeah.
So that helps reduce maybe the imposter syndrome.
The pressure,
pressure.
just focusing on one step at a time.
Yep.
You're doing a favor for all of our listeners here. You shared all kinds of secrets. We're really appreciative. And we got to say, listeners, please follow Shai. Now, he has his companies at higher res, which is higher and res, but it's really high res, which I love because, of course, hire him. So high res, HIREZ_IO.
No, it's .io. So it's Twitter.
On Twitter,
Yeah,
on
Twitter.
And you can go to the website at, it's the same thing, but .io.
Yeah, .io. Yeah.
And then you can also follow Shai directly on Twitter, which we don't have it here. It's
Shai_Reznik.
Shai_Reznik. So that's pretty easy. It's SHAI_REZNIK.
Yep.
And yeah, give them a follow, send them some DMs. If you speak Hebrew and would like to
mainly if you feel there are 2 like type of target audience that I'm focusing my help on. One is like junior developers that want to become more professionals, and I teach, like especially in Angular, I teach how to test as also a tool to get more professional faster.
Nice.
Because it's one of the tools in the tool belt that I consider that you need to have in order to be. You need to have something that verify your work, that you deliver quality products. If you do it manually, great. It just takes more time, right? It's less efficient. But testing is one of those tools. So in my courses, I go over also how to, like architecture and design decisions, and
Nice.
like conveying my thoughts as I'm TDDing an app, and like what should I do here, and like actually like speaking my thoughts and how I approach like building an app. So that's one. And the other one are teams that are suffering from unexpected bugs and fighting with them and have deadlines and busy and don't have time to stop development and get everyone learning testing at the same time, like a big bang. So I help them gradually add like layers of knowledge and shift and go from like this chaos mode to reducing their unexpected bugs rate by 20-30%, and
wow,
and all that stuff. So these are the 2 types of people that or people and companies that I help.
Nice.
That's a solid offering right there. And I know you have a track record of delivering on that promise.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on our show and sharing your dev life experiences with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dev Life Podcast. Come join our community at DevLife Podcast on Twitter and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting platform to make sure you keep up with all of our latest